8 spine-chilling encounters exposed, terrifying secrets of Appalachian haunted highways revealed. Jessica had heard the whispers. Stories all around about the haunted highways weaving through the Appalachian dark. They said hitches in cars were the least of your troubles on these twisted roads. Shadows slipped through the trees, eyes glinted in the night, and folks just disappeared from dirt paths that led straight into nowhere. The diner she ran, once filled with laughter and the aroma of frying chicken, had turned sour. Now, it served cold comfort amid chilling tales that sent shivers through even the bravest souls. Nights grew heavier, as the diner felt the chill settle in. Customers drifted in and out, but they always left quickly, glancing nervously at the darkened highway outside. Jessica wiped down the counter, her hands trembling slightly. What could be lurking out there? Folks disappeared, only to have their stories wrapped in folklore that had a way of creeping into your head. Tonight, her instinct told her, danger might be closer than she thought. She barely closed the register when her phone rang, its shriek echoing through the silence. Aaron. Her heart raced. Mom. My car, it broke down. Panic clawed at him. I'm stuck out here on Route 49. Stay put. I'm coming, she said, though her voice felt foreign, the weight of dread already dragging her down. She snatched the keys. The dispatcher's voice on the line didn't calm her nerves. It'll be a while, ma'am, they droned, indifferent and detached. She hung up, knowing she wouldn't wait around, not when Aaron needed her. As she sped through the winding roads, the trees loomed like watchful silhouettes. Each bend in the road felt like it led her deeper into a darkened world devoid of warmth. The soft hum of her truck was swallowed by the overbearing silence, broken only by the rustle of leaves. Whispers floated through the air, old wives' tales of specters waiting for unwitting travelers. The landscape morphed, the places she knew felt sinister, pulsing with secrets long kept. Then, she saw it. A figure at the roadside, a dark shape that sent ice through her veins. Jessica's mind screamed at her to turn back, yet she drove closer. But as she neared, it vanished like smoke against the night. Fear gripped her chest, tightening until she could barely breathe. The familiar crackle of cicadas went quiet, swallowed by an eerie stillness. Her pulse raced, she could almost feel the ground shake with something unseen. The faces of her neighbors flickered in her mind, their smiles a mask hiding something terrible. What were they capable of? Just as terror gripped her, she caught sight of Aaron's car in the distance, the headlights flickering like a beacon calling her home. Relief washed over her, but it didn't last. Setting foot outside, the air thickened, and from the shadows, a voice soft, almost sweet called her name. Jessica turned, a cold sweat prickling her skin. Mom, it whispered, echoing her name in a way that twisted her heart into knots. She wanted to scream, to run, but her feet felt glued to the ground. The chilling realization hit her: this wasn't just the fear of the highway. It was the terror of home, woven through the very fabric of their town. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With a shaky breath, she reached for her phone to call out for Aaron. But the air shifted, shadows moved behind the trees, and she strained to see if perhaps all of the stories were true. She had to get her son out of here. But at what cost? As uncertainty clung to her like a shroud, the whispers grew louder, and she realized that the real horror lurked not on the highway, but in the hearts of the people she thought she knew. What dark truth lay ahead of her, and could she escape before it reached Aaron? Mom! Aaron's voice rang out again, drenched with urgency. Jessica fought the icy grip of fear around her chest. She turned toward the car, her heart racing, but the concern for her son battled against the magnetic pull of the shadows. They danced at the edges of her vision, beckoning her closer. "Aaron!" she shouted, her voice trembling as a cold breeze rushed past her. It felt almost alive, sweeping through her, wrapping itself around her limbs. Rushing to the car felt like wading through thick mud, each step more unsteady than the last. She could see him now, slumped in the driver's seat, the car's flickering headlights barely illuminating his pale face. She threw open the door, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "Are you okay?" He looked up, eyes wide and terrified. I heard something. It's out there, Mom, I think it's watching us." Jessica scanned the darkened road, heart pounding, as shadows seemed to blur and pulse, mocking her attempts at reassurance. "It's just the trees," she stammered, though doubt gripped her. "We need to get out of here." As they climbed back into the truck, Jessica heard the same soft whisper that she had before. "Mom, it lured, like honey dipped in poison." A shiver rippled through her, and she glanced to where it came from. Nothing. Just darkness draping over the forest, almost swallowing the road whole. "Drive, Mom, please," Aaron yelped, his voice cracking. She fumbled with the keys, feeling their cold weight in her palm as the shadows crept closer. With a muffled roar, the engine sprang to life, and she kicked the truck into gear, wheels spinning on the gravel as they shot down Route 49. The oppressive darkness whisked by, the trees bending toward them like fingers trying to snatch away their only chance of escape. "Didn't you tell me stories about this place?" Aaron spat out, the fear turning to urgency. "The people who just disappear? What if we're next? What if they already know we're here?" His words hit her like a slap. The familiar tales of lost souls, of dark figures waiting to lure in unsuspecting travelers flashed through her mind. She brought the speedometer up, pushing the truck harder. The shadows seemed to cling to the back, relentless, gnawing at their sense of safety. How could people be so blind, so accepting of the darkness around them? "Stay close," she told him, but her own resolve felt shaky, unsure. The road stretched on before them, winding farther into the abyss. Suddenly, the headlights caught something, two figures standing by the roadside, just outside the beam of light. Her heart lurched as they emerged from the void, their faces shrouded in shadow. Was it someone she recognized? They stood silent, motionless, staring with hollow eyes. Jessica slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching against the gravel. Who are they?" she whispered, her pulse drumming in her ears. "They look like neighbors," Aaron said, his voice shrill. "But something's wrong, Mom. They shouldn't be out here this late." As they sat frozen, the figures stepped forward, their faces becoming recognizable yet distorted, smiles stretching beyond reason, eyes gleaming with something feral. "Jessica, Aaron," they chorused, their voices dripping with a sickly sweetness. The air turned icy, and the shadows seemed alive, swirling and weaving around the truck. Panic spiked through Jessica. This was no longer just a story, it was real, and they were trapped in it. "Aaron, we need to go," she shouted, but her son was staring, unable to tear his eyes away from the nightmarish scene unfolding outside. The words were caught in her throat, choking on an impending dread. What dark truth had she unleashed by driving out here? Behind the neighbors, a shadow twisted and shifted, looming larger. As it stepped into the moonlight, its form took shape, something grotesque, eyes burning with malevolence. Jessica knew then they were not alone, and the dark had teeth. She revved the engine, preparing to roar out of there. But just as she did, she heard the whisper again, sharper this time, cutting through the tension of the moment. "Stay, you belong to us now." What did they want? What horror awaited? As the figures grinned wider, their grips tightening around her heart, Jessica faced a truth more horrifying than she had ever imagined. In that poignant moment, she understood. The road ahead was not just a path leading home, it was a path leading into the very heart of darkness itself, where her nightmare was only beginning. Would she and Aaron escape? Or would they join the restless souls lingering along the haunted highways? The truck shook as Jessica's foot slammed down on the gas pedal, gravel scattering beneath the tires. The roar of the engine drowned out the whispers, at least for a moment. Aaron jolted, hands gripping the dashboard, knuckles white, panic reflected in his eyes. "Mom!" The figures receded into the darkness, but their eyes seemed to follow them, burning in the night. Jessica didn't look back, she couldn't. Instead, she focused on the winding road stretched out before them, desperate for a glimpse of safety, for any sign that they were still on the right path. But the shadows seemed to murmur, taunting her as they sped through the night. The trees closed in, twisting into grotesque shapes. "What if they come after us?" Aaron breathed, sending a shiver down her spine. "What if they are already behind us?" His words struck a chord deep within her. What if the tales were true? What if those lost souls truly wandered these roads, seeking to drag in others? The road felt like a cruel joke, one that twisted endlessly through the dark, leading nowhere. The darkness was suffocating. She tightened her grip on the steering wheel but couldn't shake the sensation of being watched. It was like an unseen force pressed against her, a weight heavy enough to pull them under. "Look!" Aaron cried, pointing ahead. The headlights flickered, illuminating a scene that made Jessica's heart drop. A crossroads loomed ahead, the faint outline of a weathered sign barely visible in the dim light. The words were scrawled haphazardly, "Lost Souls Junction." Panic surged like a tidal wave. "Turn! We have to turn!" She shouted, but there was no choice. The truck lurched forward, as if possessed, steering itself toward the intersection. "Mom, what's wrong?" Aaron's voice trembled, thick with fear. They approached the junction, the air growing colder as if they decrossed into another realm. The bright beam of the headlights illuminated one more figure standing in the middle of the road, arms outstretched like a crucifix. The figure, completely still and draped in tattered clothes, opened its mouth, but no words emerged. Instead, a deep, guttural moan shattered the silence, sending waves of dread crashing over Jessica. It echoed in her ears, a mournful lament that felt ancient. "Aaron, close your eyes!" Jessica yelled, her stomach twisting. She slammed her foot down harder, but the truck didn't respond. No, it slowed, as if the very vehicle itself was reluctant to cross whatever threshold lay ahead. She yanked the steering wheel, desperation fueling her movements, but the wheels remained heavy on the pavement. The figure stepped closer, casting an impossibly long shadow that seemed to swallow the light whole. Jessica could feel her heart pounding in her chest, each beat resonating with the dread that gripped her. The moaning grew louder, a symphony of heartbreak that clawed at her sanity. "Aaron, for the love of God, cover your ears!" She screamed, her voice breaking. The world outside turned into a blurring haze. The figure's hollow eyes bored into her, piercing right through her soul. "You can't escape, Jessica. Stay with us!" A surge of anger flowed through her, rallying her against the encroaching despair. She stomped on the gas pedal, straining against the force holding them in place. A sick, squelching sound echoed beneath the tires as they surged forward, the truck jolting violently like a wild beast finally breaking free. But that's when the whispers erupted, telling secrets, recounting tales of broken promises and lost souls. They echoed with an unholy resonance, filling the cabin like a thick fog. Jessica felt her grip slacken, the truck swerving off the road as chills broke over her skin. Suddenly, everything went dark. The headlights flickered out, the engine sputtered, and silence fell, heavy as a tomb. They were marooned, left with only the pulsating darkness around them and the echo of their own panicked breaths. "Mom?" Aaron's voice quivered, fractured. "What's happening?" Jessica's world narrowed to the darkened visage surrounding them. She cursed the shadows, every tale of the haunted highways swirling in her mind like a pulse of icy water. They weren't safe. They never were. As her heart raced, another whisper sliced through the silence, sharper than the last. "You're ours now." Jessica felt the clutches of the dark close in, an imminent finality that made her skin crawl. She clung to the last strands of her will. What could they sacrifice to find light again? What would it take to escape these twisted souls? The looming question hung, thick and heavy, in the air. What lay beyond this haunted turn? Jessica's breath quickened as she huddled close to Aaron, the darkness pressing around them like a suffocating blanket. The silence was deafening, so thick it felt like a living thing, heavy with a promise of doom. Panic flared in her chest, threatening to ignite. "We have to get out of here," she whispered, hoping against hope that her voice wouldn't disturb the spirits lurking just beyond their doors. "Mom, I don't think we should move," Aaron stammered, his wide eyes darting nervously at the shadows pressing against the windows. "What if they see us?" She swallowed, heart thumping wildly. "We can't just sit here." The faint, sickly sweet scent of decay wafted through the cracks of the truck. Jessica's stomach churned as her mind raced. Where was that coming from? She glanced around, the pitch-black exterior blurring her vision. Outside, the sounds of night were amplified, each rustle of leaves and distant snap of twigs echoing like a heartbeat in the absolute silence. "Please, just start," Jessica begged under her breath, her hands trembling as she turned the key in the ignition once more. But the engine sputtered weakly before dying again. "No. Come on." The despair clawed at her throat like a feral beast. Just as she pounded her fist against the dashboard, a soft tap echoed from the back of the truck, a faint yet unmistakable sound. Her breath hitched. "Did you hear that?" she asked Aaron, her voice a whisper. Aaron nodded, his face pale. "It's probably just the woods." "Not that." Another tap, louder this time. The sound came from just beyond the rear window, an insistent knocking that sent shards of ice splintering through her veins. The presence grew tangible, like a weight pressing down on her shoulders. She turned slowly, though dread gripped her. "Stay here," she commanded, slipping cautiously from her seat. "Aaron, lock the doors," she shouted as she moved. He fumbled with the locks, his fingers barely able to cooperate with his fear, heart hammering. Jessica tiptoed toward the back of the truck, every instinct screaming at her to turn back, to retreat into the safety of the cab. But something compelled her forward. The knocking continued, a steady rhythm, like Morse code embedded in the night. "Who's there?" she called, her voice shaky yet firm. No answer. The tapping stopped abruptly, replaced by a soft rustling, a tender whisper reaching her ears, chilling her blood. "Help us," echoed like a homesick lullaby. Desperation surged again. She couldn't just stand here. She had to see what was out there. With shaking hands, she opened the latch and pulled down the tailgate. The darkness beyond swallowed her form, pulling her into its cold embrace. Her breath hitched as her eyes adjusted to the inky blackness. All she could see were shapes shifting in the darkness, shadows dancing on the edges of her vision. She squinted, trying to make them out. Just as she thought she glimpsed figures coiling in the gloom, a high-pitched wail sliced through the air, reverberating off the trees. Aaron screamed, clutching the dashboard. "Mom! Get back in the truck!" The panicked cry snapped her attention back. Jessica stumbled backward but couldn't tear her gaze from the darkness. The figures were approaching, twisting, contorting as they came closer. They were not just shadows but silhouettes of anguished faces, their muted cries crawling under her skin. In a sudden surge of terror, she lunged back into the cab, slamming the door shut. "We have to go. We have to go. Now!" she screamed, throwing the truck into gear. The engine roared to life, a burst of sound dispelling the quiet, but the figures converged around them, their hollow eyes reflecting the headlights like shards of glass. The road disappeared under a shroud of darkness as she tore down her last remaining path of hope. And then, she saw the glimmer of something metallic glistening in the darkness, sharp and jagged. A barrier loomed ahead, a fence of twisted metal that hadn't been there before. No, no, no! She cried, jerking the wheel to the left. But it was too late. In a heartbeat, the truck collided with the fence, metal crunching and shattering, the roar of the engine drowned out by a cacophony of wails and laughter that surrounded them. Suddenly, the chilling whisper returned, echoing through her mind, "You've crossed the line." As they came to a shuddering halt, the darkness closed in around them once more, and Jessica realized there was nowhere left to run. What had she awakened in those twisting shadows? "Mom?" Aaron's small, trembling voice broke through the darkness. "What do we do now?" The weight of the shadows answered with a sinister silence. The flickering headlights cast a fleeting glow, and for a moment, she saw movement beyond figures emerging with malicious intent. What would they demand for their freedom? What awaited them now that they had crossed the cursed boundary? The headlights sputtered and dimmed, casting a sickly glow over the twisted metal that trapped them. Jessica's heart sank, every thump an echo of her dread. As she leaned closer to the windshield, the movement outside rippled like liquid darkness. The figures congregated, their bodies twisting and merging, forming a grotesque tapestry of despair. "Mom," Aaron hissed, his eyes wide with terror. "I think they're moving toward us." "No!" Jessica gasped, turning the key in the ignition once more. Desperation clawed at her, she could feel the weight of their gaze pressing against her like heavy damp wool. The engine sputtered, refused to respond, hanging in a cruel limbo of silence. She glanced at the sides of the truck. Darkness lay thick against the glass, assuring her that their isolation was complete. Outside, the whispers intensified, a chorus of pleading voices, help us," each syllable twisted like a knife in her gut. Their hands, if they had hands, clawed at her sanity. "We cannot stay here," she screamed, panic surging through her veins. "We have to find a way out." But the figures were closer now, blurs of movement that pulsed with a twisted rhythm. The air felt electric, charged with their malevolence. "Tell me what you want," Jessica shouted, desperation morphing into rage. Suddenly, one of the figures pulled back from the group, stepping into the beam of light. A face emerged from the shadows, its features gaunt, hollow eyes reflecting nothing but anguish. Jessica felt her breath hitch at the sight. She recognized the face, a mirror image of her own. "No, it can't be," she murmured, leaning closer, dread curling around her throat. "Help us, Jessica," it rasped, the voice a twisted echo of her own. "We cannot escape without your help." Aaron cringed at the sight, pressing into the seat. "Mom, what is happening?" "I don't know," she yelled, voices in her head climbing in volume, drowning her in fear. "Stay back." But the figure stepped closer, hands outstretched almost affectionately. "You've joined us, dear one. This is your fate unless you act." "No." Jessica's resolve hardened. She was not going to be drawn into their nightmare. She reached for the door handle, but the figure's voice wrapped around her heart, tightening. "Your crossing gave us life, but now you must join us to be free." The other figures flinched slightly, darkness swirling around them as if disturbed by her resistance. With every second, desperation cranked up a notch. She could feel Aaron's warmth beside her, a reminder of what she fought for. "Don't listen to them," Jessica shouted. In an explosive heartbeat, the back window shattered inward, leaving her reeling in shock as jagged glass cascaded over the seats. More whispers filled the air, anger disturbing the once pleading tones. The figures pressed closer, their movements more frantic, the cacophony kaleidoscopic and alive. "They wish to take you," the haunting voice urged, mingling with the sounds of breaking glass and anguished wails. "Start. Please." Jessica begged the dying machine, hands shaking as she turned the key again. The engine roared to life this time, but the gravitational pull of the shadowy figures distanced her from any chance of escape. "Hold on!" she yelled, thrusting the gear into reverse, tires screeching against the gravel as she fought for control. The truck lurched backward, but the figures didn't flinch. They barely seemed to notice. Then, one of them lunged, hands grasping at the air. Jessica couldn't shake the feeling that this moment held more than her life. It anchored some unfathomable terror that could swallow their very souls. Just as she felt she might break free, a shrill scream pierced the night, not from her, but from Aaron. "Mom!" Jessica's heart skidded to a halt. She turned to see her son seemingly caught between the spectral hands reaching through the darkness, pulling him away inch by aching inch. "No!" She lunged for him, but the truck shuddered violently, the figures surrounding them vibrating with life, their cries reaching a deafening crescendo. "Let him go!" And then everything erupted. In chaos, twisting shadows splintering against the light, and just before the visions of fear engulfed her, she caught a glimpse of something else, a glimmering thread slicing through the darkness, a path towards what seemed like salvation. But what would it demand in turn? As the truck rocked violently, struggling against the pull of the abyss, Jessica strained for answers in the chaos, but the darkness only wrapped tighter around her, looming with unfulfilled hunger. "Hold on, Aaron. Don't let them take you." The last remnants of confidence flickered within her, making way for more urgent dread. What lay beyond was not merely horrid intent but the possibility of choices she'd have to make when everything hung perilously in the balance. And then, above the din, a clearer voice rose. "Do you want to save him, Jessica? Then you must choose." The figures pulsed with anticipation. A decision loomed, and with it, perilous stakes that might change everything. What would save them, and what might it demand? As the shadows closed in, the weight of the choice pressed against her heart, suffocating and unyielding. The truck jolted violently, and Jessica felt a violent pull in her chest as the figures outside pressed closer. Darkness swirled around the doors, wrapping like an unyielding cold around the vehicle. Each shadowy form stretched and twisted, a mocking parade of despair. She could still hear Aaron's frightened cries, echoing like a desperate siren in her mind. "Mom, please!" he sobbed. The sound sent a pang of ice through her veins. She turned her gaze back to him. His terrified eyes were glued to the figures and their outstretched hands. The walls of the truck began to pulse with an almost unbearable pressure, as if the very air was alive with the cries of lost souls. "Hang on, Aaron!" She felt every fragment of her being erupt into a flurry of actions. Without thinking, she rolled down the window just enough to stick her arm outside. "I'll get you out, I promise. Don't let go!" he shouted, his voice strained as he twisted in his seat. "They're coming! They're coming!" Jessica grasped the wheel tighter, knuckles white, as the pressure seeped further into the cab, squeezing her heart, her will. The figures were now nearly on the hood of the truck, their faces deformed and contorted, mouths stretching wide in silent screams. The darkness seemed to whisper into the gaps between her thoughts. "Join us, Jessica," they beckoned, a unified pulse of sound. "Save him or lose him." Aaron's whimper turned into a garbled plea. "Mom, please. Don't listen." With a surge of rage and fear, Jessica slammed the gear into drive. The wheels spun, tearing through the gravel, sending rocks scattering, but the truck didn't move forward. The figures pressed against her, indignant like a growing tide. The penetrating voices sharpened into a chorus, demanding her submission. "You can't escape, it's too late for you. I want to let you take him," Jessica shouted. She clawed at the window, a frantic plea for the outside. She knew that the glimmering thread she had glimpsed offered something vital, the hope of escape, perhaps, or destruction. "Choose." The voice reverberated with conviction. "You must choose now." Her head swam with choices, memories flashing of nights spent reading bedtime stories, her son's laughter ringing in her ears. It offered clarity amid the chaos. She would do anything to protect him, even if it meant facing the horrors before her. "Give me strength," she roared into the consuming dark. The engine sputtered violently, a gurgling growl vibrating her bones. She knew she couldn't just sit and wait. Like a bolt of lightning, she lunged for the gas pedal. The truck roared forward in a burst of desperate speed. Everything happened in a blur. The figures lunged, phantoms of pure agony attempting to grasp her, but the truck surged as if propelled by her sheer will. For a fleeting moment, she felt a shift, as if time molded and twisted around them. The ethereal hands just brushed past her, grazing the windows. "Mom, go!" Aaron shouted, adrenaline spilling into his voice. But the shadows fought back, swirling and darkening the road ahead. Every fraction of a second stretched painfully as they surged around the truck, their icy breath clawing at Jessica's heart. She felt the truck vibrate, mere inches away from the abyss that opened around them, a whirlpool beckoning them into a reckoning beyond imagination. "Mom, focus!" Aaron cried, panic fueling his words. With a defiant roar, Jessica rammed the wheel left, forcing the truck into a jagged turn, tires screeching, heart racing. But darkness surged in, rising up like a tidal wave. Then, just as she thought hope spiraled beyond her grasp, she glimpsed that glimmering thread again, winding through the shadows bright against the consuming dark. It flickered with potential, as if promising escape. "Mom, let us follow it." The sound of her son's voice resonated through her, as if cutting through the fog of despair. With one more desperate act against the shadows, Jessica aimed the truck toward that radiant thread, feeling a wave of power wash over her with each heartbeat. As they barreled toward it, something inside the night trembled, and the figures reverberated with shrieks of fury. The shadows twisted, revealing unseen horrors, as if sensing that hope dared to pierce their realm. "Follow it!" Aaron screamed above the din, squeezing his eyes shut. In a final moment of faith, she slammed her foot down. The headlights illuminated the path ahead, clearer than ever. With a deafening roar, they plunged toward the light, the darkness clawing violently at the edges of their escape. Would they be swallowed whole, or would the glimmer guide them home? The shadows roared back, an angry thunder, while the light beckoned, promising salvation or something far worse. The truck slammed forward, racing toward the forbidden light. Jessica's heart thundered, a primal drumbeat against the chaos surrounding them. Each inch brought the shadows closer, their wails morphing into a collective sigh of dissatisfaction. They wouldn't let go easily. "Faster, Mom. Please." Aaron's voice was a sharp knife, cutting through the cacophony. She felt her foot press deeper into the gas, engine screaming, tires screeching against gravel. The light ahead flickered, strong one moment, flickering like a dying candle the next. She couldn't let it die. Not now. There was something beyond it, something that whispered promises of safety, of normalcy. Suddenly, the truck jolted violently again as if it hit something. A rumbling roar erupted beneath them, sending waves of panic through Jessica. The figures surged, dark fingers clawing at the cab. She could feel them, icy presences brushing against her skin. The air thickened, a suffocating mass that pulled away her breath and twisted around her throat. "Hang on!" she screamed, both to Aaron and herself. She felt the grip of despair threatening to sink her. Out of the corner of her eye, something in the shadows flickered crimson, a blistering heat against the cold. "Mom, look!" Aaron breathed urgently, eyes wide with wonder and horror. Jessica turned her head. There it was again, the glimmering thread, but now it pulsed in an ominous rhythm, as if it held a heartbeat of its own. The shadows shrieked, drawing away from the light's brilliance. It was like being stuck between worlds, with her faith teetering on the edge of decline. "You have to make a choice." A voice growled, deeper this time, from the heart of darkness. You'll lose everything if you choose poorly. The figures writhed, their faces contorted in malice. Every glare was a siphoning force, robbing her of hope. The temptation to draw back from the light gnawed at her. She felt the overwhelming weight of uncertainty. It seemed easier to give in, to surrender. But then she glanced at Aaron, his small frame trembling, utterly dependent on her resolve. "I won't let you take him," Jessica cried. With a fierce determination, she yanked the wheel sharply. The truck swerved, tires screeching against the dirt as she forced it toward the flickering thread. Shadows screamed with fury, horns of an unseen beast sounding. Within the confines of the vehicle, darkness swirled and tightly coiled around them. The light swelled, and for a moment, Jessica could almost taste it warm and sweet, like sunlight after a storm. But then a gut-wrenching explosion rocked the truck, and she felt it lurch off balance. "Hold on, Aaron!" she shouted. She willed the vehicle to defy gravity, her foot slamming the gas, refusing to relent. They spiraled closer to the light, everything else fading into the background. But the shadows intensified, clawing at the edges of her vision. She could see faces twisted in despair, once human features now nothing more than grotesque imitations. They hurled themselves against the truck, shaking it violently. "Mom! They're angry!" Aaron screamed, his voice cracking. A frigid gust engulfed them, blasting through the open window. Fear and anger coalesced into a single thought: she had to trust the light. Just a little further, she shouted, as fingers of dark fury curled around the cab, wrapping tighter. Then, just as they pierced the threshold of illumination, a deafening silence descended. The truck seemed to glide, weightless in the stillness. Jessica caught her breath, heart hammering, staring into the blinding brightness. Just as hope ignited within her, a piercing scream erupted from the shadows. "You can't escape!" The darkness surged, and the light flickered, revealing glimpses of faces lost in torment. Jessica squinted against the glare, and for an icy moment, she felt the thread snap. The balance shifted again, the radiant glow dimming in tandem with a growing dread clawing at her heart. "Mom?" Aaron whispered, trembling. "What now?" The light beckoned, but was it truly salvation, or a deceptive lure? Would they wander forever between the glimmer of hope and the darkness that pursued them? The shadows lunged forward, and Jessica had only seconds to decide. Would they face the light together, or be consumed by the night? The moment they crossed into the light, everything paused. No noises, no screams, just a haunting calm that wrapped around them like a thick fog. Jessica blinked against the brightness, disoriented. Had they truly escaped? But the moment was fleeting. The shadows pulled back, baring their fangs and hissing. Jessica's heart sank as she processed the vastness around them. It wasn't just light, it was a space, a ghostly landscape stretched before her, drenched in an ethereal glow. Where are we?" Aaron stammered, gripping the dashboard as if it were a lifeline. "Just stay close," Jessica warned, eyes darting. Fear coiled tightly in her stomach. The shadows writhed just beyond the light's reach, their howls echoing in the stillness, a chorus of fury and sadness. With bated breath, she steered the truck forward, the engine whining in defiance. A bizarre desolation lay ahead. Trees once vibrant, now pale and twisted, stood like silent sentinels, their branches reaching out, almost pleading. "Mom, it's scary," Aaron said, his eyes wide, taking in the stark, unsettling surroundings. "Just keep an eye on the light," she replied, though doubt gnawed at her insides. They were trapped, caught in limbo. The shadows pulsed, drawing closer, insatiable in their hunger. Then, as if summoned by their fear, a dark figure emerged from the trees. Tall, gaunt, and impossibly still. Its eyes glowed like dying embers, fixated on them with a hunger that froze Jessica's blood. She slammed on the brakes. "Drive. Mom, drive." "It's okay," she whispered, though the trembling in her voice betrayed her. The figure moved with an impossible grace, gliding through the light, limbs bending at unnatural angles. "Jessica," the figure rasped, its voice a chilling echo, "you think you can flee? This is my domain." Jessica's heart raced. "Who are you?" she demanded, feeling a spark of defiance even as terror coiled tightly in her chest. "Just know this," it said smoothly, advancing as shadows danced along its edges, "you'll never escape the choices you've made." Aaron whimpered beside her, fear suffocating his spirit. "Mom!" Within seconds, the landscape shifted, the ground beneath them trembled like a living thing. Dark tendrils snaked toward the truck, brushing against the tires. "Go! Now!" Jessica bellowed, her pulse quickening. She slammed the gear into drive, the tires spinning momentarily as they grappled for purchase. The truck lurched forward, plowing past the figure and deeper into the pulsating glow. But with every inch, the light flickered, shadows clawing violently at their escape. The road morphed around them. It became a dizzying maze of uncertainty. Familiar turns transformed into daunting obstacles, the landscape flickering like an old film. "Mom, make it stop!" Aaron cried, his eyes wide with terror. "Hold on." She gripped the wheel tighter. The glow pulsed rhythmically now, somehow familiar yet disconcertingly wrong. "You need to turn back." A new voice shrieked from behind, a cacophony of haunting notes blending together. "The price is steep." "Turn back?" Jessica spat, anger cutting through her fear. "Never." In that moment, a shadow flickered across the rearview mirror, a face etched in horror. Faces she'd seen before, the memories of lost souls entwined with darkness. They were watching, waiting for her to falter. "You're next," they chanted, echoing around her. The air felt electric, electrifying. Pressure built in her chest as though the shadows themselves sought to burst inside her. Frantic, Jessica barreled onward. "Do I need to choose again?" she shouted, fear and defiance battling within her. And then it struck her, a realization as cold as ice. The light wasn't a sanctuary, it was a trap. "Mom, look!" Aaron pointed. In the distance, an even more blinding light erupted, pulsating like a heartbeat. "You must," the figure shouted, panic weaving through its words. Still, she felt a pull, the new light calling to her. Would this lead them to safety or deeper into despair? As she steered the truck toward it, unyielding decides fought in her chest. In the blur of choices, Jessica spoke. One word out loud: "What now?" The question echoed, threatening to claim more than just her sanity. The truck surged forward, engines roaring. Jessica's hands shook on the wheel, every nerve alive with dread. Aaron's whimper grew louder, a raw sound of pure terror. They were being pulled, drawn toward that blinding, pulsating glow. "What now?" echoed in the air, but the light ahead offered no answers. Instead, it loomed bigger, brighter, almost mocking in its intensity. The shadows behind them writhed, tracking their every move, a stubborn reminder of the darkness they had narrowly escaped. "Mom, please!" Aaron pleaded, tears streaming down his cheeks. "What if it's worse?" The thought twisted in Jessica's mind like a knife. Could it really be worse? Her gut twisted painfully as her decision loomed. "Just hold on," she shouted, slamming on the accelerator. But as they neared the blinding light, the landscape shifted again, the trees warped, and the ground cracked, creating monstrous fissures that looked ready to swallow them whole. Sharp, shrill laughter echoed through the chamber of light. It was a sound that crawled beneath her skin, raising goosebumps. With every passing second, the brilliance of the light seared into her eyes, brighter than anything she had ever experienced. "Aaron, close your eyes," she screamed, desperately trying to shield her son from whatever horror was about to unfold. As they pressed deeper into the light, the temperature shifted. A sudden chill seeped through the cracks of the truck. Her breath formed clouds in the frigid air as the light became a blaring beacon of dread rather than salvation. "No! No!" Jessica screamed as the glow warped around them, pulling them into an unsettling vortex. The shadows shrieked, an agonizing sound that echoed from every angle. Dark figures closed in, their eyes glimmering with a cruel joy. They were close, too close. The world outside the window distorted, blurring between reality and nightmare. Reflected in the rearview mirror, Jessica caught a glimpse of a face, a twisted grin stretched wide across a familiar form. It was her own visage, warped by fear and despair. "What is happening? How is this happening?" She gasped, gripping the steering wheel as if it could anchor her against the tempest. The familiarity stung, producing an undeniable sense of dread. "Emoem!" Aaron cried out as a shadow leapt onto the truck roof, its form morphing. Long serpentile limbs wrapped around the cab, squeezing, tightening, inhaling their hope like a vacuum. "We need to get out of here," she shouted. "Hold on, baby." Fueled by sheer adrenaline, Jessica swerved the truck violently, hoping to shake the darkness off. But the shadows laughed, they knew her every turn. Suddenly, the world outside shifted again. The ethereal glow shattered, revealing a cobblestone road leading to an old, decrepit house. Its windows stared blankly, mangled memories trapped within. The whispers of the shadows became clearer, a repeated phrase intertwining begging and laughter. Join us no!" Jessica shouted defiantly. She could see them now. Visions flickered in the air, faces of the lost wearing expressions of regret and yearning. The ground seemed to pulse with longing, urging her to stop, to surrender. "Mom, we can't go there. Please." Aaron's voice trembled, fear evident. But something inside Jessica cracked. "We need to find out." She barked back, instinct taking over. With one final push, she veered towards the eerie house, the last beacon of hope or doom burning ever closer. The moment the truck skidded to a halt, shadows recoiled, as if bracing for a confrontation. The front door of the house creaked open slowly, revealing a dark interior that inhaled the light around it. "Welcome!" the voice resonated through the chill of the air. It echoed hollowly, reverberating inside her mind. Jessica's heart raced. What awaited them within those walls? Was this the way out or the heart of the darkness? With a shared glance of uncertainty, Jessica and Aaron exchanged a wordless question, "What now?" But the answer loomed within those shadows, whispering for them to step inside. Jessica gripped the steering wheel, heart hammering as uncertainty wrapped around her like thick smoke. The air inside the truck felt heavier now, laden with the weight of cumulative fears, a smothering blanket that stifled hope. She looked at Aaron, his wide eyes reflecting the storm of emotions brewing in her chest. "Stay close, buddy. No matter what." As they sat in the haunting stillness, the shadows pulsed, their shapes trembling with curiosity, anticipation. The door of the decrepit house hung open, a gaping maw with whispers of the past spiraling within. "We have to see," Jessica urged, her voice stronger than she felt. "Maybe there's a way out." With steely resolve, she took a breath and stepped out of the truck. The gravel crunched beneath her boots, each sound echoing like a death knell. The smell of damp earth and decay hung heavily in the air, and as she approached the front door, she could feel a magnetic pull, a beckoning that urged her to enter. "Aaron, stay right behind me," she called back, her voice steady despite the shuddering in her chest. He followed, clutching the edges of his shirt, the fear written plainly on his face. Inside, the darkness seemed to breathe, wrapping around them as if the very walls stored secrets close to their hearts. The floorboards creaked with whispers, subtly guiding them deeper into its clutches. Dim light filtered through cracked shutters, illuminating faded photographs on the walls, smiling faces frozen in time. "Do you see them?" Aaron whispered, pointing. "They look sad." Faded memories melted before their eyes, stories trapped in a haunting embrace. "They want us to listen," Jessica said, glimmers of understanding lighting her mind. Maybe we can understand what is happening, what we need to do. Suddenly, the shadows thickened, coalescing into a figure that stepped silently from the corner, a woman, ethereal and sorrowful, with eyes glistening like dark pools of water. "Help us," she mouthed, her voice a gentle breeze gliding over their skin. Jessica felt an urge to reach out, to comfort her. A distant echo of pain resonated within. "What do we need to do?" she whispered, hope teetering on the edge of despair. The figure moved closer, extending her hand, and Jessica hesitated only for a moment. Erin's small fingers clenched her arm, pulling her back. "Mom, don't." But something shifted within Jessica, a flicker of warmth, an understanding. "We can't leave people behind, Erin. We can't let darkness consume their stories." She took a step forward, summoning all the courage buried deep inside. The room seemed to tremble, shadows swirling faster, gathering all around her, the very memories of lost souls rising to interact with their living counterparts. "We have to confront it," she said, voice shimmering with resolution. "All of it." As if awakened by her words, the house shuddered violently, the air trembling with the weight of judgment. The spirits surged forward, joining together like a wailing chorus, voices melding with old tears and regrets. "You've chosen to listen, to understand." "Yes. Yes." Jessica shouted into the maelstrom, feeling empowered and terrified all at once. "Tell us what happened to you. Help us break free." The shadows screamed, and a vortex of memories swirled around her, each face flickering through their pained past. Echoes of love lost, betrayal, and unfulfilled dreams whirled in heartbreaking clarity. "They treat this place as if it's a prison," a voice rose above the rest, deep and resonant. "Sorrow runs deeper than earth, it drowns the light." "Mom, I can't breathe," Erin said, panic evident as the darkness thickened. "Hold on," she yelled, channeling every ounce of determination into their escape. "We must break the cycle. We're not trapped like you." With that, she lunged toward the flickering essence of light that pierced through the shadows, embracing its warmth. She clutched Erin's hand tighter, envisioning every ounce of love and hope she had for them. As they surged forward, the brightness consumed the darkness, illuminating the room in a flood of golden radiance. The shadows shrieked as they pulled against the light, grasping helplessly at memories. Jessica felt their essence merge with her own, a rush of grief and pain infiltrating her very being, entwining with her urgency to protect Erin. "I want to let fear take us," she shouted through strained breaths, pushing through the storm, darting towards the shimmering exit ahead. The figures wailed in torment, but now their cries were different, less anguish, more understanding, as if she had offered a lifeline. At last, they burst through, emerging into the brilliant light outside. They stumbled on the cobblestones, breathless yet alive, the house looming behind, an unblemished reminder of what they had escaped. Silence enveloped them, thick but welcoming. Jessica looked at Erin, heart racing. "We're free." But the echoes of the shadows lingered, a soft reminder of the fight just won. She vowed to remember, to honor those lost souls. The real price of freedom weighed on her heart. As they walked away from the threshold, hand in hand, Jessica felt a new resilience swell within her, a pledge to protect their narrative, to keep the haunting stories alive. As they drove back toward home, forever changed. And in the rearview mirror, the old house faded into the backdrop, shadows retreating, swallowed by the light. If you've enjoyed this wild journey, now is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. What do you think happened to Jessica and Erin? What will they face next? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to be part of this journey, and only true fans understand the power of supporting the channel.